Where's your emergency?
Just killing my mom and my sister.
Fear of the dark.
Who killed a salon owner in her own home? Was it a boyfriend who was sleeping at the residence? Or was it someone else? Let's all investigate together to see who done it. In the early morning hours of September 2nd, 2012, Chicago homicide detectives respond to a 911 call. Yolanda Holmes, 45, a single mom who owned a hair salon, was found shot and stabbed to death in her apartment. She was killed as she slept alongside her off-and-on boyfriend, Curtis Wyatt. Meanwhile, Yolanda Holmes showered love and attention to her child. Whatever he wanted, his mother gave him. She bought him a Mustang, jewelry, and designer clothes, even helped him to find steady jobs. But unfortunately, Qawmane repaid Yolanda's caring and love with gunshots. He had Yolanda murdered for the inheritance at least $90,000 of life insurance and her savings. At 23, the inspired rapper wanted more. He just needed to boost his rise to the top as Young QC by flashing over-the-top wealth and bling to his friends. Wyatt, who called 911, was found to be bleeding from lacerations to his head and face and was treated by the paramedics. While speaking with the police, he told them that he recently reconnected with Yolanda. He was initially awakened by a phone ring and Yolanda speaking to someone. Then he heard the gunshots. He tried tackling the man, which is how he had the injuries, but the man escaped. He raised suspicion, though, when he told investigators that he had cleaned up the murder scene and why he was left alive. Then eventually, investigators examined the apartment building's surveillance footage. They saw that at 4:32 a.m. a man approached the main entrance, punched in a code, and entered the building. He wore a hoodie and was carrying clothes on a hanger and a deodorant bottle. At 4:46 a.m., he exited the building. He was wearing a different hoodie. As he left, he passed by another man who was identified as a resident. Detectives questioned him and found no link to the crime. Detectives turned their focus back to Wyatt, who agreed to take a polygraph test. The results indicated that he was being deceptive, but investigators made no arrests at this point, as they had no evidence that he was connected to the murder. 13 months into the murder investigation, detectives knew that Qawmane was talking on Yolanda's second cell phone at the time she was being killed. They determined that the person he was talking with was Eugene Spencer. Detectives issued an investigation alert for both him and for Qawmane. On December 23, 2013, detectives tracked down Qawmane. Spencer admitted that he shot and stabbed Yolanda, and revealed Qawmane had given him the access code to the entrance, while Qawmane's former girlfriend, Loriana Johnson, was with him and drove Spencer to Yolanda's apartment building. Qawmane had spoken to his mother about 40 minutes earlier and told her that he was coming over, said Corollas. So Yolanda was expecting her son to be at the front door. The real mastermind was Qawmane Wilson. It was revealed that Qawmane offered Spencer $4,200 to kill his mother. Afterwards, he gave him $70, according to Corollas. When the murder was happening, Qawmane was on the phone with Spencer. Qawmane then told him to make sure that bitch is dead. That explains why he stabbed Yolanda after shooting her in the head. After her death, Qawmane withdrew nearly $70,000 from his murdered mother's account and spent the money on flashy clothes and cars, and tossed wads of cash to a crowd of people he said were fans of his rap music, capturing the moments in a YouTube video that was played for the jury. Qawmane's motive for having his mother murdered was pure greed. Let this be a reminder to us, although we love them, we shouldn't spoil them with what they want. We should always set limits, because there's a true saying that said, our children needs our presence more than our presence. On December 24th, 2013, Qawmane Wilson was arrested for his mother's murder. In January 2020, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 99 years in prison, while the gunman, Eugene Spencer, was sentenced 100 years in prison, and Qawmane's girlfriend, Loriana Johnson, pleaded guilty to robbery and served 7 years in prison before being released on parole. Good evening, everyone. If you happen to like our content, then please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing is free. If you ever feel the need to change it, you can always do so. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that way you never miss any of our content. Now back to the video. On Tuesday, April 26 of 2016, Tricia Todd spent the day with her ex-husband, Stephen Williams, and their 2-year-old daughter, Faith. Even after they have divorced, even after 11 years of marriage, the separation was amicable, and they've known each other ever since they were childhood sweethearts since elementary school. Tricia and Stephen were both in the Air Force, but after their divorce, Tricia left and moved to Hope Sound, Florida with Faith. She was familiar with the area she's from, and her family still lived there. She planned to become a registered nurse and got a job working in a hospital. Then, less than 3 months after the divorce, Tricia suddenly disappeared. Tricia's family had notified the local sheriff department that Tricia was missing after she failed to show up at the hospital where she was working. Her family went to go check on her at the house, but unfortunately she wasn't there. Her car was parked outside, but not in the usual car space. It was parked across the street. Her purse was inside of the car. The house itself had some groceries left out and the lights were on, so it looked like wherever Tricia was, she didn't intend staying for too long. She was reportedly missing. Authorities learned Tricia's cell phone records that she had gone to see her ex, Stephen, who had traveled to Hope Sound from his air base in North Carolina to spend a week with their daughter. Stephen told police Tricia was supposed to have picked up Faith the next morning, but she never did. So he left the child with the babysitter and returned to his base. Police began to look throughout Tricia's belongings like a cell phone and diary, trying to figure out where she may have gone. A journal revealed something that had gone on in her family that no one has been aware of. Tricia's journal revealed that Stephen had a darker side. Stephen had abused Tricia in the past. He had kicked her in the stomach when she was pregnant, and she was frightened of him. He even strangled 2 of her little dogs. Stephen's mother revealed that Stephen had hated Tricia and wanted her to disappear. She believed he was involved in her disappearance. Police now knew that Stephen was more likely involved in Tricia's disappearance, but they needed evidence. They found security footage of Stephen driving both his car and Tricia's car the night she went missing. Footage also placed him near Tricia's home. Investigators described it as one of the most gruesome crimes they've ever seen. A lively and spirited young woman chopped into little pieces that they found stashed away in her killer's toolbox. Detective Michael Oliver was one of the 2 detectives who interviewed Stephen Williams in an Orlando prison after his murder conviction. Initially, Stephen denied any involvement. He repeatedly said that he had no idea where Tricia was. After further questioning, he eventually admitted to knowing something, but his story changed numerous times. However, one thing was clear: Tricia was dead. Stephen had the entire thing planned out. He had previously bought a chainsaw in North Carolina and acid and had dug a hole in the reserve. When he murdered Tricia, he put her body in the trash bag. Then he put her body in the car as he planned to drive her car. Then, that's when his plan began to unravel. There was no gas in Tricia's car, so he had to go and buy some, which placed him on various security footage. At first, Stephen claimed he had found Tricia's dead body and disposed of her body. He then claimed he accidentally killed Tricia that night, but his final confession revealed the true intent of his depravity. The 26th of April, he spent the entire day trying to get the courage to kill Tricia. He did not visit Florida to spend time with Faith. He went to Florida to kill Tricia. When she left for the night, he asked her to come back. When she returned, he immediately knocked her unconscious. Tricia woke up and Stephen demanded her email password. He wanted to send everyone an email to say that Tricia had left on her own accord. Tricia was hysterical and began screaming. Stephen beat her in the head again with such force with a club and then choked her to death. When he had got the gas, Stephen drove her body to the reserve. Using a chainsaw he brought in North Carolina, he removed Tricia's teeth and fingertips so that she would not be identified and dismembered her. He placed her body parts in a tub that was filled with acid in an attempt to dissolve any trace of Tricia. When they asked why he did it, he claimed he wanted full custody of Faith and he was tired of Tricia disrespecting him. He also said he didn't want to pay child support any longer. Investigators knew that they were dealing with a premeditated murder as soon as William led them to the plastic tub filled with acid in which he buried her body parts at the Hungerland Wildlife and Environmental Area along the border of Palm Beach and Martin counties and planted a flag of a 3-foot grave he made for her. Tricia's family was left devastated and wanted full justice. I had no idea that he would have killed her. I really hope that he doesn't get out again and kill someone else, said David Todd, Tricia's father. Stephen Williams was arrested on May 26, 2016, and soon after charged with a lesser charge, which was 35 years in prison for a second-degree murder in exchange for bringing authorities to Tricia Todd's body. It seemed to have no effect on him, even though she was the mother of his child. He is a cold and calculated killer. A man like that should never be released or see the light of day. Anyone can have a child and call themselves a parent. A real parent is someone who puts their child above their own selfish needs and wants, not someone who is perceived as a perfect parent in social media or social circles and just a horrible parent in real life. And this is what happened in our next heinous crime story. Tiffany Lucas, 32, was once a Louisville business owner, is accused of murdering her boys Jaden at the age of 9 and Maurice at the age of 6 in their home at 213 Bentwood Drive in Shepherdsville, Kentucky on Tuesday, November 8, 2023. A resident of Shepherdsville has found herself thrusted into the headlines for a tragic and unthinkable event that left a whole community in shambles. A neighbor named Steve Steyer got worried when he felt something was off. He went into Tiffany's house and found a really awful scene in one of the bathrooms. Her kids covered in blood and a gun on the bed. It just was heartbreaking. He immediately called 911 and reported the horrifying incident. The Bullitt County Sheriff's Office responded to a report of shooting with injury at the home at 11:07 a.m. When authorities arrived, the 2 children were still alive but in critical condition, and they were immediately rushed 30 minutes away to Norton's Children's Hospital in Louisville with gunshot wounds. They were taken into surgery, but those efforts were not enough to save the boys. By 2:50 p.m., they had succumbed to their injuries shortly after arriving to the hospital, and that left the family and friends and community in mourning, according to the spokesman of the PCSO. Lucas had told the police that she shot the boys on accident, that she was being manipulated. But then Aunt Bobby Baker does not accept those excuses to justify taking 2 innocent lives. Baker also noted how Lucas showed no emotion as she appeared in court. She doesn't look like she has a care in the world, Baker said. If you're a good parent and you're going through something, a good parent would say, I cannot handle this right now. I have to give up my kids. She had options. It was so far from how great and sweet of a mother she was on social media, posting her and her son's pictures with those sweet captions that seemed like they were a happy and loving family. Business records show that the store closed in 2017, and according to court records, she pleaded guilty to drug charges a year later and was sentenced to 30 days in jail, and there was no criminal records between 2018 and to her arrest last November 8th. People on Facebook who claimed to know her spilled the beans, saying that she was into drugs, did prostitution, and left her kids alone a lot. A judge kept Lucas' bond at $2 million cash. Bullitt County Commonwealth's attorney, Bailey Taylor, said it was appropriate and advocated for it to stay in place. There was no objection from Lucas' side. I did not want it to drop because of this heinous nature of the offenses, Taylor said. I do not believe she needs to be out on bond under any circumstances, and that bond essentially assures that. For Baker, Lucas sitting in jail is just as well served, but not closure, because she will never be able to see her nephews again. She plans to go to court every day and ensure that the system would not fail. They were kids, Baker said. Ever since this happened, the only way I can describe it is as having a lump in my throat constantly. A pretrial conference date is set sometime in March, where both sides will discuss evidence and motives, and the judge is expected to set an official's trial date soon thereafter. As for Lucas, she's now in custody at the Bullitt County Detention Center, where she belongs. Good evening, everyone. This is Yuri K, and this is the end of the video. Please leave a comment and let us know your opinions on the matter. If you happen to like this content, please check out our other videos. Make sure you like and share amongst your friends and family to help our community grow. You happen to be new to this channel? Please make sure you subscribe. It's free, and you can always change it in the future. You have some terrifying story suggestions? If so, make sure that you send it to my email, fearofthedarkstories@gmail.com, and I'll feature it in a future segment. But you guys stay safe out there, and remember to always be afraid of the dark.